everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm very excited to be here today to talk about one of our new products called Nara. It's quite a recent one. It was released a year ago at NAB 2024. Yeah. And joining me on this panel are Darren Woolfson, CTO at Molinare, and Sam Lempp, one of the key people behind the development of Nara. Actually, I think it would be nicer if you can introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Darren Woolfson. I'm CTO of Molinare. Molinare Creative Group is a large post-production facility in Soho in London and elsewhere in the UK and the world now. And really, we can deal with anything from front-end dailies all the way through to localization for language reversioning. So a full end-to-end post facility.
And you've been there for a long time also. And then...
Yeah, about 50 years, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sam Lempp. I'm heading up the business development side for Nara. I've been at FilmLight probably for about 10 years, and most of my experience there is all around products. It's teaching people how to use the software. It's deploying it in unique and interesting ways. And for the last 2 years, I've basically dedicated 100% of my time to Nara and rolling it out to various customers worldwide.
Okay, nice, thank you. So Molinare has adopted Nara recently, so let's talk about your experience on and how an efficient post-production pipeline can make a real difference. So let's start with a question for actually both of you. Can each of you share your definition of what's an efficient post-production workflow and how that differs from 5 years ago, so pre-COVID?
Shall I start?
Yeah.
So I think for us, efficiency is obviously about using the minimum amount of resources to perform any task, and whether that's equipment or people. But I think for us as a business like Molinare, it's also about particularly the tasks that we get the people who work for us to do. So it is about trying to eradicate the need for repetitive, mundane tasks in our business, because those are typically the tasks where our users make mistakes or don't enjoy their roles. So I think it's about that, and it's about getting our software tools to talk to one another as much as possible, and to create as far as it's possible an integrated pipeline for all the work that we do.
And you, Sam?
Yeah, I think you mentioned there how it differs from 5 years ago. And one thing I'd say is obviously in between those 5 years, we had a global pandemic, and that forced people to work remotely. It certainly forced companies to think about distributed working. And I think the nature of things, we thought everything would go back to normal, but it hasn't. Everyone has stayed remote. Everyone's stayed distributed, whether that's working from home or whether that's working across offices. And it's forced vendors, especially ourselves, to find solutions that allow us to kind of transport data in an efficient and meaningful way. And also, provide solutions to allow for collaborative communication across continents, across countries, across cities. And I'd say that is certainly a large focus that we've had.
Let's save some time. That's the goal now. Also. And Sam, can you walk us through what Nara was built to solve and what are the core inefficiency in post that you've identified?
Yeah, so Nara is essentially built on top of the FilmLight technology stack, and it's basically our media access, review, and approval tool. And it essentially allows users to view and stream media regardless of its format. So it could be literally any format that you guys deal with, whether it's OCF or EXRs or IMFs and DCPs. And it allows users to stream those and view those anywhere in the world. So completely, instantly, and intercontinentally, you can click a button and you can be seeing high fidelity files on your web browser instantaneously. And over the last 6 months or so, we've also added new sort of capabilities in there that kind of make it more of a platform for post houses and anyone really at M&E to leverage. And we'll talk about that slightly at the end, I think.
Okay, so Darren, a question for you. Molinare is one of the first UK company to adopt Nara. into the workflow. Can you tell us more about the relationship between FilmLight and Molinare? I know there's quite of history.
Yeah, well, I guess Molinare's history with FilmLight goes back a very long way, and I was just trying to work out whether Molinare bought its first basslight in 2000 or 2001. As far as I'm aware, Molinare was the first long-form post house to, particularly a TV post house at the time, to install a basslight. And although I have done other things in between, I was involved in that purchase back then, and I've enjoyed actually a really good relationship with FilmLight. All the while we were a customer of FilmLight when I was at Pinewood Studios as well, and we've had software, FilmLights, Northlight scanners. We've done all sorts of work together. I think I guess that's relevant to where we find ourselves now, and the fact we've decided to go with Nara, because Nara is one of these tools, and perhaps I'll talk in a little bit as to why we wanted something like Nara. But what Molinare typically wants when it buys tools is to work with manufacturers who are going to support our needs. And that means, if it's a piece of software, it means we can have an ongoing dialogue about the software, what it does, what it might do in the future, and feeling like we're a part of that development cycle. And I think for us, that it's always felt like that with FilmLight, whether it's true or not. To us, it's felt like the guys have always genuinely listened to us, and that's been very helpful. And so when it comes to Nara particularly, we had a specific problem that we needed to solve, and so probably like lots of businesses in our situation, we've got lots of storage, high speed, less high speed, archive, storing media in all manner of formats and in all types of color spaces. And we tend to segregate it. It sits on production networks, so for security reasons, we restrict access to it very heavily. And then we have lots of people in our company who would really benefit from being able to look at some of that from time to time for any reason. You might be a post-production manager who wants to see a progress work. You might be someone in the marketing team who's looking at material for showreels. And in a traditional workflow, that would require a request to go down to our MCR department to make a transcode, probably an H.264, and deliver that back up to someone so they could have a look at it. And as you can imagine, that's quite time consuming. That uses lots of resource. So the problem Nara solved for us was it suddenly gives us access securely to our production network and allows any individual in our business who we give permission to view any piece of media, wherever it is, in whatever format it is. It effectively does a real-time render, just like the basslight would, converts it into the correct color space, and media can be watched. And that's sounds very basic. It's actually incredibly cool. It's revolutionary, actually, in a business like ours, to be able to access things and view them when you want to, rather than have to put in requests to others to make that possible.
Okay, great. And just to go back on the relationship with FilmLight, but actually with Nara, were you involved in the beta version of Nara?
we quite funnily, I mean, when we had the idea, we decided, okay, let's do some research and development in the fields, basically just asking our customers, what are your problems? And I think we had a conversation with Darren looking like complete lunatics, where we sort of walked into the office and pitched this idea of what we thought it could be. We had nothing to show. And based on that discussion, we were able to move forward with it. And I think it's those kind of relationships that we have with our clients, those 20-year-long, 25-year-long relationships that give us the confidence to walk in somewhere like that, pitch an idea, and not look like crazy people.
Anything, yeah.
and people like Darren, I mean, once we had something, the first people we contacted in the UK, I think, was you guys, and we put something in, and it wasn't necessarily ready as a product then, but we were able to do this kind of very collaborative back and forth about, okay, what are the problems that you have, and how is it that you see your users using it? And I think that kind of very close relationship and interaction really helped us. And it also means that, we hope anyway, that the kind of problems that Darren's facing in Molinare are quite, general and applicable to other facilities for sure.
And in some ways, it's becoming more relevant all the time. As we coming back to your first question, what does an efficient modern workflow look like? Effectively, it has loads of automation in it today, so less human interaction. You set tasks off, you book something into your scheduling system, it triggers a process, something spits out the other end. And if you can possibly do it, there won't be a human involved. So no one's actually looking at any of this stuff and making sure that it's been done correctly, that the right clip has been picked up. So tools then like Nara become essential in your facility so that you can go back and look at work that's been done at any point in the process and decide whether it's been done correctly or not.
Okay, nice. And Sam, can you tell us what is the installation process?
It's pretty smooth. The nice thing about it is that it essentially sits on top of your infrastructure that you've got. So there's no need to kind of think about, okay, how do we feed information to it as a platform? It just sits on your storage. We mount the storage and we read it. Most installations we've done have taken probably 2 hours max, and then a bit of IT work over the days just to iron things out. But yeah, it's a pretty smooth installation. We can deploy in the clouds for native cloud installations, or we can deploy on-prem. But essentially, it's a roll your own solution. We're not a software as a service, so it's a platform that you host either on-prem or you host it in the cloud yourselves.
Okay. And Darren, on a typical day in post-production, and you kind of mentioned it slightly earlier, how and who mainly uses Nara, benefits Nara?
So right now, I'd say it was mostly the post-production management team. They're the largest users of it, specifically to identify what process certain parts of work are, to check media is as it should be. I think what we're talking to Sam about at the moment, though, is how many of these features we'll surely be able to roll out to our clients. Because again, just like us, our clients typically want access to viewing copies of work that's in progress. They want to collaborate and share within their own teams. And again, the traditional process is they put a request in, someone renders out an H.264, H.265 and sends it off. And we want to be able to remove that part of the process and effectively give them a login to the platform that will then give them access to the media they want to view, and no one actually has to physically set a job off.
And I think something to note there as well, there are other platforms, of course, as we know, that allow you to access media in a browser. But I think the key thing that we're providing here is the ability to view anything. So, as Darren mentioned, that you want to be able to service your clients. But when you do that currently with a lot of tools, you kind of have to have some process in place which takes that media and transcodes it to a format which is web supported or can be uploaded to a platform that they can view on. But the idea of Nara is that you can literally have an OCF file or an IMF file or an EXR file, and your clients can have direct access to that media in their browser without any transcode process in place. And so in terms of like how that we talked about that kind of manual process that happens right now, the aim is that it really does eliminate that. And so you save a huge amount of time when accessing this sort of data.
Yeah. And often when we talk about efficiency, it's often associated to uncompromising quality. Does this make sense what I just say?
Compromising
on quality.
Quality, right?
So how do you maintain high quality while optimizing the pipeline? That's for some.
No. Yeah, so
that can be for you.
Yeah, so I mentioned just then that you sort of compress data to move it around because, of course, the smaller the file format, the easier it is to move. And in that process, you compress the data, you compress it by bitrate, you compress it by color, and so you get a essentially not true to form image. And the advantage with us is that, again, we read the source and we can kind of derive an output based on your requirements. So if it is a HDR master at 444 and you want to stream an image as close to that as possible, you can basically allocate as much bandwidth on the client end as you want and they can see the image. But the other advantage is that historically, as a company, we have been known for color, and a huge part of accuracy is not just, okay, how much bandwidth or how much bit depth do we have in the image, but is the color accurate? And a lot of complaints are out there about streamers that are there and whether you're seeing the right thing and whether the device can support those kind of color spaces. And we took quite a long time as a vendor to release an image streamer, but the main reason being is that if we released a non-color accurate image streamer, it would be kind of embarrassing. So we spent quite a long time, nailing that down and making sure that the images you see are always going to be accurate, basically.
And another point, Sam, is that security is a critical point in post-production. Can you tell us more about Nara's approach to safeguarding content?
Yeah, I'd say that the approach is not reinventing the wheel. So we implement our security basically like enterprise standard security. So if you have AD infrastructure or LDAP infrastructure or things like Entra or Okta for 2FA and single sign-on, we basically just integrate exactly the same as that. So you put the system in, you inherit the users that you have already, and you're able to do the standard kind of internet-style security that is kind of standard in the industry now. So yeah, 2FA and SSO and all that sort of stuff.
And I can speak to that because we've integrated Nara's logon through our Active Directory, and again, it's not very interesting, but pretty much all the software tools we choose now, we need to know that single sign-on is going to work, and it's key so we can switch stuff on, turn it off as straightforwardly as possible. So it's cool. It's good.
And so, Darren, Molinare Creative Group is made up 4 brands, 5 to become, actually.
Soon to be 5, yes.
Yeah, from onset to post-production.
Through to localization, so foreign language reversioning, yes.
And all those locations are using the same tech. They are not all in the UK. How will Nara support collaboration between sites, and what kind of impact do you expect on project efficiency?
Yeah, so I mean, I think what you described there, it just forms such an important part of our decision making when we're choosing products now, because 10 years ago, Molinare was effectively a business operating out of 2 buildings across the road from one another in Soho. Molinare Creative Group is now made up of businesses that are in Soho, in Bedfordshire, in just outside of Reading, in Winnersh, offices throughout the UK, and soon to be Dublin and Malta. And so our plan is not to simply replicate everything we do in every single location. Quite the opposite. We want to deploy equipment in one location, be that in one of our facilities or in the cloud or in a data center somewhere. And we want all of those business divisions to collaborate using similar tools. And I think, once again, the way I describe we're using Nara at the moment is exactly going to benefit that workflow, because it's a tool that allows people to watch a color accurate proxy of media that could be anywhere. And so if you have a business that's operating over multiple geographies, then good tools that help you and allow you to do that. There are features in Nara that allow multiple locations to collaborate and view copies of media simultaneously. And, all of those sorts of tools are just essential to multiple people collaborating in different locations.
And a question for both of you: how do you see your relationship with Nara evolve?
Between Molinare and FilmLight?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's
been pretty good.
It's been pretty good, but it's been a long relationship already, so that's obviously made things a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of actively developing based on our user requests, and that doesn't just go for Molinare, that goes internationally. All of our customers out there, basically every single tool that we're going to talk about at the end has been spec'd or suggested or designed based on our customers' requests, and Molinare played a massive part.
Okay, and let's end by the V2, Nara V2. Sam, can you tell us about the new Nara's feature?
Yeah, so in the last 6 months, we've really done a big push in releasing sort of more features that allow people to do a lot of different things with the application. So firstly, one of them is storage analytics. Again, a lot of facilities have a bunch of storage that they need to manage, and quite often it's distributed across various silos. And because we have an index in the back end of Nara, it allows us to essentially give you first-hand live information of your storage. So you can see how full that storage is, what files or folders are taking up the most space, how long those files or folders have been on disk for. And it kind of gives post-production managers and anyone who's responsible for the storage basically the ability to audit that on a more regular basis. And
Are you going to make any of that available through an API, do you think?
We're sort of API first, really. Again, this is all based on our user requests. But if people want to interact with it, we're always open to making sure that information is available. So the other one. Sorry, I can't remember them in order. The other one is project improvement. So in Nara, we have a concept of projects. You can basically pin folders across various storage locations under a single place. And what we can do there is, because it's sort of part of a database, we can assign like dynamic rules. So if you want certain color transforms to apply to those to that media, you can do that. If you want certain format mappings to apply to that media on the fly, you can do that. And it's all completely customizable, configurable. We're not transcoding data. And so as you make these adjustments, those changes essentially happen live. And you can also manage like members. So you can choose, okay, who has access to what project. You might want only producer 1, 2, and 3 to have access to project A, and you might want producer 3, 4, and 5 to have, so you can manage that better as a facilitator. The other one is obviously our major product. What we're known for is Bayside. So we have very close interactions with Bayside. So if you're a Bayside customer, you can make use of this. I know Molinare are. And you can basically browse the Bayside project live from within the application. So you can as a producer, it's really great because you can see, okay, what files do I have in there? Are they the right VFX versions for the review that's coming up today? What's the metadata that's in there? Are there any client data or notes for the live sessions that we've had with them? And you can kind of interact with it and get live updates better. And again, completely remotely. So you might be working from home, you might be working from another country, another continent. You can still gain access to this information. And this is at the moment working with Bayside, but we do plan on supporting other NLEs with this sort of functionality in the future. So look out for those announcements as well. Consolidate and transcode. So of course, our whole thing is don't transcode if you don't have to, but naturally you do need to change the format of data at some point. And we do have a full back-end render in Nara, so you can essentially take any media format and turn it into any media format that you like. So that's OCF to EXR, so VFX Pool is an example, or it could be OCF to DNxHR for offline or dailies. We basically support all of the formats. The other one is consolidate, so you can move media from one location to another, either based on an EDL or based on file selection, and you can trim handles for OCF and all that sort of stuff. So essentially, we're taking all of the technology that we do in Bayside and have done for years and kind of democratize that and give you, as a facility, much wider access to those sorts of tools. So you can kind of, you can take away that burden from, say, the operators or the artists, and you can focus more heavily on
okay, one last.
And the last one is external review and approval. So we can take images and streams, and you as a facility can stream that to an external client anytime you like. That client doesn't need a VPN, they don't need an installer, they just need an email address and a web browser, and we can basically send out a link. You can send it to as many people as you like, and they will get a link, they can click on that link, and they can see the exact same media that you're seeing live.
Okay, great. So we don't have much time for questions, but I have one interesting one. Does Nara accept adding metadata, so to search for specific shots based on information to editorial, for instance?
Yeah, it's a really good question. At the moment, all of the search is based on the media stored in the file. So if that metadata exists in the file, like in an EXR header, for example, for VFX, you can definitely search for it. But we have had requests for like adding basically semantic data, and that is absolutely on the roadmap, and we're basically working towards that the next year. So if you wanted to add, manual tags to it and search for those, for sure.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. It was very informative and interesting. I hope this session gave you a clearer view of what's possible with smarter post-production tools. And if you have any more questions, you can just come by and ask questions to Darren or Sam.
Also, we're on the Jigsaw stand by the bar, so if you want a demo, grab a beer and head over to us, and we'll happily show you.
That's a good way of saying it. Grab a beer.
I'm going to grab a beer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right.